What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Structure. I'm the Ancient Ninja, and today's subject is going to be one that is quite complex. It's a hypothesis of mine that I'm going to kind of put together with a couple different things that I've researched. So, before I get the video started, be sure to go to theancientninja.com. You can subscribe to keep updated on when I release episodes, and I also have some of my other projects on there and a little bit about myself. Um, I did get the opportunity to interview Dr. Shiva, who is running for president in this year's elections. He's also the inventor of email. Yes, seriously. And we did our part one on the 7th. We're going to be doing a part two so we can finish the conversation. So be sure to check that out. I'll have it linked at the end of the video. And I hope that you guys like this topic today. And if you have any opinions on it, just leave a comment or find me on social media and message me. Okay, so the title of today's episode is Keeping It Secret: How Rituals Are Affected by the Observer Effect. Yeah, so first, if you're not familiar with what the observer effect is, I'm going to kind of go over the definition. Here we go. So this is a document. This is from a website called IEE Explore. I'll link all the stuff that I use as reference below. So, in simple, the observer effect is the fact that observing a situation or phenomenon necessarily changes it. Observer effects are especially prominent in physics, where observation and uncertainty are fundamental aspects of modern quantum mechanics. That basically means that the observer effect is something that when there is an observer involved in what is happening, it changes the molecular structure of it. So, this is a worldwide effect because everything is essentially observing. And I'm going to get to why humans are extremely powerful when it comes to this certain effect and how the way that we observe stuff is quite literally changing the way the world and universe, in a sense, works. So, there is a common experiment that people reference that actually is about the observer effect, and you might have heard of it. It's called the Schrodinger's cat, and it's this super popular experiment that kind of illustrates the power of the observer effect. So I'm going to read this right here. How does the Schrodinger's cat work? We often use Schrodinger's thought experiment to explain the concept of superposition. The experiment states that a hypothetical cat is locked in a box with some radioactive substance controlling a vial of poison. When the substance decays, it triggers a Geiger counter that causes the poison to be released, thereby killing the cat. Since the box is locked and we on the outside don't know whether or not the radioactive substance has decayed or released the poison, we can't tell if the cat is dead or alive. So until we open the box to know for sure, the cat is both dead and alive. Mathematically speaking, there's a 50% chance the cat is dead and a 50% chance the cat is alive. So it simply is like kind of the middle of the observer effect and what happens when there isn't an observer. Kind of like if the tree falls in the forest, is there anyone around to hear it? I mean, these are some familiar phrases and experiments that people probably know watching this, and that has to do with the observer's effect. So now you're wondering in the video why I said I'm relating this with rituals. So when it comes to these dark magic rituals, whether it be dark magic or white magic, whatever it is, whatever the intention is, it's still a ritual. And often these are done in secrecy. So you have tons of secret societies, and I could go into those in another video. But you have tons of these secret societies that all operate and do their rituals secretly. Now, given there are certain things you could consider rituals, like something you do every day, I would kind of call that a habit. Um, I would think that a ritual can truly be defined by your intent to do something for that particular ritual to affect something else that would otherwise be out of your control. So we have a lot of these that have been happening for a very, very long time. It's not like the concept of rituals are new. But, I've seen a lot of curiosity around the fact of like, well, if they're doing these things, why don't they just do them out in the open? Which they have. That's why there are concerts. There are rituals that are done out in the open. It's just people don't realize it's a ritual. So this is where the observer effect comes into play, both whether or not they're doing it in the open or it's being done in secrecy behind doors. And it's the effect of consciousness. So here's this article on the AAS.org that talks about the quantum mechanics and the consciousness connection. Now, that might sound like it's super confusing, but I'm going to kind of go over why this matters, why consciousness behind the observer is stronger than something without consciousness that may still be observing it, still have effective energy, but it doesn't have a conscious, which makes it stronger. Now, so this comes into the direct play of these rituals. And also, while I'm talking about this, I want to throw out there that this is why when people kind of release footage of rituals or something like that to try to, expose something, let's say, I'm very weary because people doing these rituals, it's not like they're stupid. These are ancient mechanisms. The people that are doing them are very powerful. So the observer effect in play by itself, whether or not they realize that there was an observer there, would change the ritual itself, and that would certainly be noticed. So at least that's something that makes sense to me based on all of these findings. So on here, um, in this article, I'm going to read from this paragraph. Many who believe that consciousness creates and manipulates matter believe that the law of attraction can be explained by quantum mechanics. The crux of the law of attraction is that whatever a person focuses on will be brought into that person's existence because the thought becomes the directed energy which attracts those things upon when the mind is focused. If a person focuses on the negative in life, more negative will come. If a person focuses on the positive, more positive experiences will come. In short, you bring about what you think about. And that's something that, I'm sure people are aware of with the law of attraction. And the reason that matters so much is this goes, the observer effect is directly affected by so many spiritual things in our life. And they all matter when it comes to us simply observing it. So when it comes to that law of attraction, we are changing things up by simply observing what attracts us. So it's really interesting when you think of it in that kind of dynamic and the power of the consciousness, how people looking at these rituals, whether they be intently focused on making them happen, or whether they be someone that has really nothing to do with them and them observing it can actually mess it up or change the intention of the person who is not only putting an action to it, but they're also observing it and trying to make it happen. So I'm going to finish this article and go into the rest of it that kind of affects this as well. All right. So now the Higgs boson has been found. The role of religion in relation to science again comes to the fore. Max Planck says all matter originates and exists only by virtue of force, which brings the particle of an atom to vibration and holds the most minute solar system in the atom together. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. The mind is the matrix of all matter. It says it right there, within these findings that the mind is so powerful um, that the observer effect in action with the human mind behind it is incredible. And if you follow me, I have a video about how we're not inside the matrix is inside of us. And I talk about other documents that I was reading over that quite literally call the mind the matrix. So this is just another thing proving that there's no way we'd be inside of a matrix with all the effects working in play. If you're scientifically breaking it down, the matrix is inside of our mind, and we have to be powerful enough to be able to access that in a way where we can help, or if you want to use the word help, however you want to put it, we can control our reality better and have more power in that sense. So that's kind of that kind of goes into how consciousness truly affects the observer effect. So once again, when you're thinking of these rituals and why they're done in darkness, why they're mainly at the very top, it's because certain people can only observe these rituals. They cannot have them so openly on display, and if they are, there's a reason for that. Because it's so important that the person with the intention is the person that is doing the ritual and also observing it. Which would be often explained why a lot of victims will be blindfolded, things like that. And this might not even be a conscious, intentional thing to like hide it. That they know the reason they're doing it is because of the observer effect. Certainly, it could be. This might not be a alone hypothesis of mine, but it could be something that is one of those occurrences in life that just happens kind of underneath that we really don't notice, but our brain subconsciously gets used to. So then we start to say, okay, well, if I do this and I do that, this is going to happen. They started to see, oh, people being in here, we can't have certain people watching this and things like that. And we all know the sayings about the eye being the soul, the eye being this window to the soul. Classic things about the eye, the power of the eye, the symbolism of the eye. This could be certainly because the observer effect has more of a dominant role than we realize. And so there's actually an article too that I'm going to pull up and I'm going to read a little bit from. Um, and this is about rituals within themselves. So there is a psychology behind rituals, and that may be something that pulls directly from kind of what I'm saying. It's kind of just the human mind already understanding things that it doesn't understand yet, which happens to me all the time. So let's get into this. All right. So it's called The Power of Ritual in Prehistory, Secret Societies, and Origins of Social Complexity. The author's goal is to place secret societies at the forefront of archaeological consciousness and have them occupy their rightful place in prehistorians' accounts of how and why many important socio political and religious changes took place in the past. He argues that these societies provide the missing link that explains why cultures invested so much in ritual centers and how religion and ritual became associated with the power and force of cultural change. His premise is that secret societies were socially disruptive and created inequality through the control of surplus resources that enabled aggrandizers to promote their own self interest and status. Based in political ecology, this view counters the conventional widespread functionalists as the Marxist driven arguments that interpret religion and ritual as cohesive forces that reduce social tension. He argues that archaeologists speak erroneously of the power of ritual and believe and instead proposes that any power connected to ritual and religious rests in the ability of leaders in secret societies to exact acquiescence for the ideological and other dictates, much of which was achieved through terror. And this just kind of goes into highlight. So this book is arranged in three sections: the New World, the Old World, and the implications for archaeology. Um, In the first chapter, Hayden describes secret societies, explaining why they are important and using them to support his critiques of common archaeological models and interpretations. He described them as a type of ritual sodality, controlling exclusive knowledge with access to spirits in the spirit world, which is the secret in secret societies. So this is like where this is getting pretty interesting. And I want people to kind of like notice that this just goes into everything else that I said. Um, So I'm sorry, and I apologize for like the pauses that I'm having. I'm arranging my screen, so I'm trying to get it to where you guys can see me and see this. And so sometimes it changes the level, like the size of the font, which throws me off a little bit. But okay, so this right here is going to kind of get into everything that I was talking about. Is going to also not only explain because of the observer effect, but why behind the psychology of these rituals they are keeping these things a secret. Okay, so he describes them as a type of ritual sodality controlling exclusive knowledge with access to the spirits in the spirit world, which is the secret in secret societies, and having voluntary ranked membership frequently with expensive fees. He argues that they embody traditional ritual, art, food, music, dance, costume, and language. Their members cut across the kinship groups and communities and create a supra community level of control, organization, and power that is far reaching. They extract large amounts of resources from the community and direct them to the few individuals. The highest ranking individuals in a community frequently hold the highest ranks in a secret society. And so this goes on to tell about kind of all the power that comes from that and comes from keeping these things operating in the way that they are. And, so I just think it's very interesting that when you break all of this down and you look at how the observer effect is so important to everything, and then you put together, well, that makes sense why these rituals are done unknowingly, because that's one, it might not even be that they're in secret. It could be that they are just being done unknowingly, which is something we see a lot with sports games, we see with concerts, like I said earlier, and people don't realize that it's a ritual. So even if they're looking at it head on, they're not understanding what they're looking at. But then ones that are, maybe more powerful, have more of an attention on something else, they're done in secret. And that's why we rarely ever see the ability of this stuff to be caught on camera or even just caught in person. And camera too. Camera is something I could get into a whole other video about how just having a camera, I mean, there's a reason why when you point cameras at animals, they kind of like look and they know that the camera is being pointed at them, because even on an animalistic level, you understand that there's a camera pointing at you. So even having a camera looking, it doesn't even just have to be the human. That's how powerful we are. We're looking through the camera. So yeah. So I hope that you guys liked today's video and you found interest in it. Like I said, will link everything below that I researched and used as reference today. And if you guys have any other crazy theories about why rituals are done in the darkness, please talk to me. I would love to hear what you think. And I really like connecting the spiritual aspect of things to the scientific world, because that makes it all more understandable for people. Science and spirituality go hand in hand. Up until, recently, with the way people see things, were always seen as hand in hand. So we can look back and see that in ancient texts and the way the ancient texts uh, do bring science to the forefront of things. So yeah, and I will be doing the second interview with Shiva tomorrow, so it's going to be at 3 p.m. Easter time. If you are able to, we're going to go live, so pop in live and catch some of that. It'll be our second part of our conversation. Guys, it's been a nice video. Really enjoyed talking about this. As always, keep it pointy.